I don't think there's anyone alive that really wants to deal with trauma or unresolved issues, just like there's no one on this planet who doesn't have some kind of issue or trauma tucked away somewhere in their past. So I get it that it's so much easier to just ignore those over-the-top reactions that seem to come out of nowhere and instead shove them back down really hard like you do the rubbish bin on rubbish day. But if you want to live your best life, that at some point you're going to have to deal with these issues, with this unresolved trauma. So I'm going to share with you my favourite, my safest and easiest way that I've found to release my traumas and my unresolved issues. I'm also going to share some risks that you must be aware of if you want to avoid making things worse, and also some tips to make this process even more effective. I'm Nicola, and my passion is helping parents and not yet parents release their stuff so they don't pass it on to their kids and repeat the cycle. And I've been finding ways to break my patterns of pain for over 25 years. Now, just to be clear, I am not a licensed therapist. This is simply me sharing my own personal experience of what has worked for me as I've worked through releasing my own traumas. This work, resolving and releasing your issues, can be really challenging. So only do it if you feel ready. Make sure you think for yourself and take responsibility for ensuring your safety and well-being at all points in this process. Trauma is not something you ever really get rid of or clear out of your system. Some people do describe it that way, but what really happens is that you change your relationship with it. It has an emotional charge, and through this work, you release that emotional charge. So you still have the memory of the events, but you don't have the trigger, the emotional charge that comes with that. My definition of trauma is basically anything that gets stuck in you, in your energy, in your body. It's a reaction to an event that gets stuck in your system. And usually this happens because you had an experience where there was a really intense emotion, and for whatever reason, you weren't able to fully experience or process that emotion in that moment in time. And so it's sort of still in your system. And when you encounter something that reminds you of that experience, a trigger, then it resurfaces. That emotion comes up as intensely as you experienced it the first time. And as far as your body is concerned, it's as if that experience is happening all over again right here, right now. And that's my definition of trauma. There's no such thing as big or small when it comes to trauma. It's an event that creates a response. And if you have an over-the-top reaction to something, an intense emotional reaction, you are triggered by something, then it's trauma, period. There is no debate on that. It doesn't matter what the event was that led to this, it's in your system and this is how you're experiencing it. And what we're trying to do with this approach is to actually reduce the intensity of that reaction to the trigger. So the process that I like to use that helps me work through releasing these unresolved issues is what I call titration, or dip your toe in the water. If you've ever done chemistry, there's a process called titration where you take an acid or a base, you take the opposite substance, an acid or a base, of a known concentration, and you very slowly add it to the other one. What you're trying to do is figure out the pH of the first solution, and you do that by adding very small amounts until an indicator dye changes to neutral. Now, if that's all mumbo jumbo, really what I'm saying is we use very small amounts of something to get to a certain point. That's titration. And in dealing with traumas and unresolved issues, titration is about going a very small way towards that trauma. So just enough to activate a very small piece of it. We're basically glancing off the edge of it. We're not going deep head first into it. That would be way too overwhelming. What we're doing is trying to activate the tiniest possible piece of this issue in us. And then once we have that active in our awareness, in our experience, we sit with it. We might trigger it by looking at old photos. We might think of a memory of something that happened. We might have certain phrases. Whatever your trigger is, we use that to activate a little piece of this trauma, and we sit with that. We notice it. We breathe. And I've got a whole video on how to sit with uncomfortable feelings when they come up that you might find helpful. And as you're sitting with it, this can also be a really good opportunity to use healing techniques, whatever your favorite healing technique is, whether that's something like meridian tapping or EFT, whether that's breath work, whether that's EMDR or eye movement, whether that's trauma release exercises, whatever technique you want to use. to help dissolve that charge that you've activated with that small piece of the trauma. What can happen in this situation is that you activate more of it than you intended. You might just glance off the edge of this event or memory and use this trigger to bring it up, but in some instances it can just blow the whole top off and you have a massive overreaction, a really intense reaction. And that can be pretty destabilizing. Ask me how I know. So if this happens, try and distract yourself. Take your attention away from that trigger that you used to bring it up in the first place. Try and put your focus on something else if you can, and ground yourself as much as you possibly can. And by that, I mean bring yourself to be fully present, back into this current moment in your body, awareness of your surroundings, awareness of where you are and the fact that you are safe right now, right here in this moment. And I have a guide with a ton of grounding techniques that you might find useful to help you with that process. Just that you've got them in your toolkit should you find yourself in this situation. And of course, that leads me to the caveats with this whole process, and that is that your safety and well-being are the number one priority here. Everything else comes second to this. So make sure you're prioritizing your safety, starting with being in a safe space. This is not something you want to do out in public. This is not something you want to do in a place where you don't feel physically, emotionally, mentally, anywhere you don't feel safe. You do not want to be doing this in that context. So make sure you choose the situation where you do this very carefully. Secondly, it can also help to have a support person, whether you're working with them directly while you do this, or they're just in the vicinity in case you get overloaded or overwhelmed or have a reaction that's unexpected. Having that person there can help you bring you back to the current moment, to safety, to help settle you down and work through the reactions that you're experiencing. So safety and support are really important. What you do not want to do is to re-traumatize yourself, because that is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. When you re-traumatize yourself, you actually increase the intensity of your reaction to this situation. We're trying to actually weaken that. So that's why it's so important that you go slowly with this. That is the whole reason for the titration approach, is that so you don't re-traumatize, so that you go as slowly and only as slowly as you can handle and no more, and you can slowly dissolve each piece as you work through it. For the impatient people among you, like me, this can be a really frustrating process. I am not typically very patient, and I got to a point during the birth of my second child where I was like, I've had enough of this, get this thing out of me, and I forced the process. And I broke my waters before they were ready to break. And of course that made everything suddenly much more urgent, complicated things way more than necessary. The point being that my impatience, my unwillingness to take it at the pace, at a safe pace, made things worse. And that's why your safety is so important here. Okay, so when you are feeling stable and courageous, try this titration technique. Go through those steps. Start releasing the charge on those experiences slowly so that trauma no longer affects you as intensely. And if you want a list of my favorite techniques for releasing emotional issues, I'll put a link to that for you in the description that you can download. And use those techniques to help you as you are working through dissolving the charge on these pieces of trauma. And if you'd like to understand my 5D process for dealing with your stuff once you've uncovered it, watch this video next. And I'll see you in the next one.